Let's talk about The Vanishing. Stanley Kubrick called The Vanishing the most terrifying film he had ever seen, and this to me was really surprising. I'd never heard of the movie before, and I loved Stanley Kubrick, so naturally I had to check it out. After watching the trailer and reading what it was about, I had a hard time believing that this movie, a seemingly simple story about a girl going missing while on vacation, could be the most terrifying film Kubrick had ever seen. But after watching it, I realized what Kubrick meant. Now, why is this movie so terrifying? And mind you, this isn't a cliche horror film. It doesn't have jump scares, masked killers, or blood and guts. It's more of a psychological horror movie, if anything. I would describe The Vanishing as horror realism. The movie completely departs from using cheap tricks, instead instilling a sense of terror in the viewer by showing us the very real, candid nature of a person capable of kidnapping and murdering someone. That person is Raymond Lamorne, the main antagonist of the film and the kidnapper of Saska. Saska is kidnapped by Lamorne at a rest stop when she and her boyfriend Rex go on vacation in France. Well, I've put together 5 reasons why I think this movie is so terrifying. Those being, number 1, the fact that it is horror realism. Number 2, it could happen to anyone. Number 3, obsessiveness. Number 4, the killer is just an ordinary guy. And number 5, the killer's process. The fact that this movie strays away from cliche forms of horror, jump scares, masked killers, blood and guts, all those kinds of things, makes this movie infinitely more scary. And as previously mentioned, this movie is mostly a psychological horror movie. There's no actual violence on screen really, besides a single scene where the kidnapper actually kidnaps Saska, luring her into his car under the pretense of selling her a keychain and then chloroforming her. This scene is extremely disturbing, but mostly due to the fact that nothing of the sort happens prior to this. And when this scene does happen, almost at the very end of the movie, it's extremely disturbing. But this is literally the only remotely violent scene in the movie. Instead, the movie relies on immersing the audience in the mind of a methodical killer. The terror comes from the slow unraveling of his plan, his ability to manipulate those around him, and the mundaneness of his demeanor. Watching him carefully calculate his actions and involve unsuspecting people, his family, friends, and strangers, adds a psychological layer of dread to the movie. The audience feels helpless as they witness the killer's meticulous progression towards his horrifying goal. It's cerebral and unsettling fear, driven by the killer's cold logic and lack of humanity. What makes The Vanishing even more unsettling is that the kidnapping takes place in broad daylight. Surrounded by people going about their business, Saska is abducted while her boyfriend is just a few meters away. This shatters the common belief that such crimes only happen at night, in dark alleys, or in bad neighborhoods. The fact that it occurs in such a normal everyday setting heightens the terror, making it feel even more possible and real. Obsessiveness. Obsessiveness is a central theme in The Vanishing, seen mostly in Rex, Saska's boyfriend, who remains consumed by the disappearance of Saska even years after the event. His fixation on her disappearance even sabotages new relationships and drives him out to seek Saska's kidnapper. The killer himself is equally obsessive, meticulously planning his crime and playing psychological games with Rex by sending him letters and trying to meet with him. In the end, Rex's obsession leads to his death. His compulsion to know what happened to Saska leads him to willingly share her fate, buried alive just as she was. It's extremely disturbing to see how far obsession can drive someone, and is one of the factors in what makes The Vanishing so terrifying. Number 4. The killer in The Vanishing is terrifying precisely because he appears so ordinary on the surface. He's a chemistry professor with a family, going about his business just like everyone else. The contrast between his mundane everyday life and his dark sociopathic tendencies emphasizes that people capable of committing horrifying crimes can blend into society undetected. This idea that such individuals could be anywhere, even someone you might pass on the street, feeds into a deep fear. We want to believe that criminals are visibly different, but often they aren't. And that's what truly unsettles us. Number 5. The depiction of the killer's process is deeply disturbing. His meticulous planning and constant refinement of the crime is insidious, and it gets under your skin. He involves his family in the planning of the kidnapping, testing their screams and asking a neighbor if they can hear him. We see him test the timing and the effects of the chloroform on himself. He trains his body to lower his heart rate while practicing talking to unsuspecting women. And the most disturbing, he even reenacts the chloroforming and kidnapping with his own daughter. This disturbing behavior is exacerbated by his calm, cold, and calculating demeanor as he treats the entire process with the casualness of someone making a cup of tea. It's a terrifying glimpse into a twisted mind, made all the more chilling by his pursuit of perfection in his plans. Alright guys, that was my video on The Vanishing, the most terrifying film Kubrick has ever seen. If you like this video, leave me a like, comment what you think, and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.